hospital where he later died. A firearm was recovered at the scene, according to police. The Kent County Medical Examiner ruled Johnson's death a homicide. The Michigan State Police is leading the investigation, and the officers involved remain on administrative leave. In the week since the shooting, community members have renewed calls for greater transparency and changes to policing policies, including the department's use of K-9 units. Deputy Chief Joe Trigg is stepping in as Grand Rapids interim police chief beginning today. City Manager Mark Washington appointed Trigg, a 25-year veteran of the GR Police Department, to lead the department during its transition to new leadership. Former Police Chief Eric Windstrom has left the department to become police chief in Pensacola, Florida, after nearly 4 years leading GRPD. The city has said a national search will be conducted to select a permanent chief. The City of Grand Rapids Fire Department has launched its 2026 firefighter recruitment process. Applications for firefighter positions are open as of March 1 through May 30. The department is also accepting applications for fire cadet positions, a 4-month paid opportunity, and for its Fire Youth Academy, a 1-week summer program for Kent County teens ages 15 to 18. To help interested candidates prepare, GRFD will host a series of open houses between now and May. The events will include presentations on the hiring process, interview guidance from a deputy chief, and the chance to try portions of the physical agility course. More information is available at joingrfire.com. The Grand Rapids City Commission approved a $14.56 million construction contract with Taplin Group LLC for the Grand River Revitalization Project, moving the long-planned effort to restore the city's namesake rapids into its construction phase. The first phase of the project, known as the Lower Reach, will span from I-196 to Fulton Street. 4 dams will be removed and replaced with natural rock features designed to restore rapids, improve aquatic habitat, and expand recreational access along the river. Anabawen Park with Gillette Bridge to Bridge Street will serve as the main staging area and will close for construction beginning this spring. Construction is expected to take about 2 years. The second phase, known as the Upper Reach project, includes the proposed removal and replacement of the 6th Street Dam. And because that dam serves as the first sea lamprey barrier on the Grand River, the work is being led by the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, which has begun its environmental review process. It's tax season, Grand Rapids. The Grand Rapids Income Tax Office is expanding its hours ahead of the April 30 city income tax filing deadline. The office will be open select Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on March 14, March 28, April 11, April 18, and April 25. Beginning March 4 through April 29, the office will also stay open until 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. Regular weekday hours remain 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and walk-ins are welcome. Residents of Grand Rapids are required to file a city income tax return regardless of where they work. Non-residents who work in Grand Rapids must file a non-resident return. Officials recommend bringing a photo ID, the first 2 pages of your federal return, and any W-2s, 1099s, or supporting schedules. The deadline to file 2025 city income tax returns is April 30. More information is available at grcity.us/income tax. The City of Grand Rapids has launched a redesigned website at grandrapidsmichigan.gov as part of a multi-year effort to modernize its digital presence. The updated site features improved navigation and reorganizes information around services residents use most, rather than by department, and now includes 4 main categories: a prominent I Want To section for quick access to payments and services, and an expanded city events calendar. In partnership with the City of Grand Rapids, the Michigan Department of Transportation will replace the Martin Luther King Jr. Street Bridge from the northbound US 131 ramps to approximately 200 feet east of Buchanan Avenue. This section of the bridge, formerly known as Franklin Street, was originally built in the 1920s to cross the numerous railroad tracks that are still prominent in this area. March brings both Sunshine Week, focused on government transparency and public records, and Free Speech Day, a celebration of First Amendment rights. And the Grand Rapids Community Media Center has several events planned. Wealthy Theater will host The Truman Show on March 10 in partnership with GRTV. The documentary Rebel with a Clause on March 19 in partnership with the Rapidian, and Hackers on March 24 in partnership with GRCMC's Web Services. GRTV's Free Speech Day programming will air March 11 with community submissions due by March 4. More information on that is available at grcmc.org. GRTV's Spring Fund Drive runs from March 9 through the 13th, and the Rapidian Spring Fund Drive runs from March 16 to March 22. Donate $10 to either program to help make this live monthly programming possible. Visit grcmc.org/donate. That's it for City Updates. When we come back from the break, we'll be joined by First Ward Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak.
For over 30 years after humble beginnings as a public access TV station, the Community Media Center has grown to be an active, multi-platform media and technology assistance organization, encouraging and enabling our community to push their creative boundaries. We power a variety of resources, including a music-centered community radio station, WYCE, a community venue with stage and screen at Wealthy Theater, citizen-driven journalism with the Rapidian, a web development team empowering local nonprofits, an education department that trains and broadens students' minds, and a free speech public access television studio, GRTV, where it all began. By introducing audiences to new voices and ideas, we enhance community engagement and create connections between artists and audiences, enriching our city's cultural offerings. We empower and collaborate with platforms and resources accessible to all and used by all. Every free democratic society depends on media, accessible to the community and uncensored by government. The Community Media Center continues this work for the media landscape of today and tomorrow. These platforms and services empower our neighbors to tell their stories and explore the richness of culture that Grand Rapids has to offer. Connect, discover, learn, create, and share. The Grand Rapids Community Media Center.
Allison Donahue, joined here by Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak. And thank you for coming back to our show today.
Yep, thank you.
We had you last month, but happy to have you again to fill in for the mayor this month.
I was just going to say the mayor sends his gratitude and well wishes to everybody. He's doing all the mayor things and extra things with family. So yeah, I'm pinch hitting this month. But I know there's been a lot of conversation in the community. We had a really intense week in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. So I will do my very best to show up and help wherever I can here.
Before we jump into that, I have been told that there's a birthday announcement we have to make.
We do?
Yes, Melinda Usasi's birthday is today.
Oh, true. Happy birthday to my colleague, Commissioner Usasi, whose birthday is today. Today's March 2nd. And if we're going to be on birthdays, I'm going to say mine's on March 13th. I get to be on Friday the 13th, and I'm celebrating a big decade milestone. I'll leave it at that because y'all can play the carnival game. Put in the Facebook post how old you think I am. That's cool, huh?
And one more birthday to my colleague, Elena Dressler, the civic producer at the Rapidian. Happy birthday to all the Pisces.
Yeah, and if I've missed anyone, happy birthday to you all too.
Yeah. All right, well, that's the fun news. You have already kind of set up part of this conversation. It has been there's a lot of grief going on in Grand Rapids. We talked at the top of the show about the death of Jaquan Johnson, and I saw some reporting from, I believe it was Fox 17, that this is the 12th officer-involved shooting in 4 years. And I mean, we're hearing that, we're feeling it from people. You don't always get the opportunity to respond to community members at those meetings when there's a ton of public comment, but you have some space here if you would like to use it.
Thank you. First of all, on behalf of me personally, I have not yet had the opportunity to say publicly the condolences that I really sincerely feel for Daquan Johnson. Is it Daquan? Daquan? I've heard it different places.
I heard his mother pronounced Daquan.
Daquan, thank you for that. Okay, so to Daquan Johnson and his family, Mom was there at the commission meeting last week. I heard her directly. I've been watching wherever I can, the videos, and I just want to say my heart goes out, my condolences sincerely sent to everyone who knew him, and to the community as a whole. And on that note, since you've brought up the other ones, I think this is an opportune time to recognize the amount of grief that we have, and the condolences that I wish I could send to all the people who've had these kinds of or lost someone incidents. We had someone in December, who some people think he had mental health. His family was very disturbed about it, and he ended up getting in shooting at police, and suicide by cop is the implication. But no matter how it happens, and then to recognize too that we have a lot of people in our city who are hurting when it comes to the loss of loved ones, including young ones. I'm thinking about June, that we had 3 officer interactions that led or responses to really violent crimes in our city in one 24-hour period. And I know that a 15-year-old girl who's beautiful, I have a 15-year-old son, and she was, I believe, stabbed or something. And so, those are just some of the people, and there are so many more that we all, whether it's from crime in our neighborhoods or, interactions that go wrong, or from potentially police carrying guns. There's a lot of places where people are losing their life or getting injured or other things. So I really see this as a much bigger thing than community versus police or policy versus police or government versus community. I really see this as a bigger mental, socioeconomic, humanistic, grief, pain. We need to do some healing. We need to do some real work, and we can't. I think there's going to be some new levels of discussion that need to happen as a result. That's where my brain is at least right now, and my heart.
Yeah, so part of that discussion, I mean, what is happening at the city commission level? What is there, what powers does the city commission have to change or adjust GRPD policies? I
am so glad that you phrased it exactly like that, because the thing that I think, what I heard when people come to these meetings last week or on other occasions, they're like, you, powerful person, we perceive you to do something, right? Do something now. And we oversee as the commission, and we really are just citizens. We are representing the community to the best of our ability. And so like I say it to everyone, I can only do my job if I have good eyes and ears on the street bringing me information. So I genuinely want to continue that. And, we oversee Mark, the city manager, Mark Washington, who then is in charge of hiring the police chief. So he will be in charge, and the city staff that helps him, HR and stuff. He is in charge of looking and searching and doing that for our next police chief. He's also the one that would be able to direct on behalf, if we had a movement on the commission that said, and we have already said to Mr. Washington, please let's at least look. What else can we be doing? I know the mayor's having those conversations, and there's a willingness to at least look, but it's his job as the manager, the CEO of our city, to direct the police chief and the police department to do that. So it becomes a staffing issue. And I think this is one of the things that when we start talking about civilian oversight and things like that, first of all, I want to highlight that we have a civilian appeals board, which has been kind of cutting edge, and other communities who've had those kinds of boards since us don't get the same features.
Can you talk about that board? What does it do?
So yeah, I'm getting there. We'll wrap it all together.
Sorry to jump
No,
in.
you're fine. I'm glad. So the Civilian Appeals Board is an appointed body. So city commissioners, every one of us and the mayor have direct appointees on there. And they sit and review any appeals that are brought from any complaints that have gone through, or incidents that have gone through the internal affairs review process at the police department. And then, so if that determination, which keep in mind, I've gotten this question or seen it, why is everything done inside the police department? And a lot of that, I want to make clear that it's hard, we're in this weird space between. There are disciplinary actions and union contracts. It's a staffing thing, a staffing issue. And so the internal affairs department deals with those things, it's like the HR, but for disciplinary action. If the determination is not satisfactory, the people, the regular citizens, have the opportunity to bring the case and the findings from that to civilians. It's sort of like a jury, right? And the civilians then look at what was found, what was the evidence, was there something missing? They have the opportunity to ask a few more questions. If they want some information that was missing, or they feel like something, they do have the opportunity to ask the Office of Public Accountability to go get that through the police department. So, it's been around, and if we want to do any changes to that body, it would have to be done and be brought up during the union contracting, which we just finished last year. And the legal experts are telling us, don't open that can of worms, because while we could add some things, we might lose some of the things in the negotiation and right now many communities who've built their boards after us don't have the same features we have, including asking for more information. And now you need to talk to a lawyer, because I don't know all the differences. But so when we think about the police chief, we think about civilian oversight, we have the opportunity as a commission to say we would like to take a second look at these policies, but we don't write the policies for the police. The police have to do that. At least that's my best understanding right now. So I could liken this to what we do with immigration, which was also a big topic in our community. There are two policies that are related to that. One is set by the city commission that then goes for all the staff through the city manager and whatnot. So that's elected officials, city staff, regular folks, appointed officials. And then there's a second policy dealing with immigration and how we do our looking for status or not. That is solely set by the police. So when you hear us reference this, we're always referencing those two things together. I hope that brings some clarity for some people. And can I say one more thing?
Please.
This is going to be a little cutting edge, possibly. I've been percolating. They're really in this what I would call a liminal space for the last 2 weeks, that place in between. And I'm, like I said, I really send my heart and my love to all the people who are affected and losing people from all these different gun violence incidents. But I also am looking at this from not just the he said, she said, police versus community kind of, and then I think, so the big question I'm asking is, how do we scale human healing? And what role do I play as a voice in that? And I think there's some unique things that I can do that others, and each of us can play our role. And I want us to evaluate that and say, what is the role each of us can do? Because I hear the community loud and clear. I hear the anger. I hear the pent-up frustrations, the historical perspectives, the feeling that, this is a systemic oppression and things like that. I also hear that there are a lot of people trying their very best, and that we have to remember that there are people who are trying to keep our community safe and trying to respond to incidents. And maybe we need to do some better work on where it's happening and why and when. But my perspective, from just if I were to go up the mountain a little higher and kind of look, it's there are places in our community, and this is just a theory perspective, so I'm talking on behalf of myself, but I think that there's very real possibility. There are areas that I know of in the first ward that are where are the police? Why are they not here enough? So then by contrast, you might have places where they're here too much. So I think there's, a lot of just thinking and reviewing and behind the scenes work that needs to be done. And it doesn't have to be done just by the commission. I think that there are experts in the field. I think there are community members who have lived experience. I think there are neighborhood leaders. And that's my cutting edge. And then the next cutting edge, I think, is to really, for me, is to say, I've had some people in my life who have leadership and they say, we should be listening to the experts and we should be just synthesizing as commissioners and fielding the and I don't think that's right. My personal belief is I need to educate myself and research the research out there as best I can, because I really am struggling with this idea that we've had people studying this for their whole lifetimes and we haven't figured out how to crack it. Seems like we would have if we could have. And maybe there's some other different kinds of thinking, or people who haven't been at the table, or just, I think of the box, it's what if the instructions are on the outside of the box? We have to get out there on the outside and read them. So those are some very new thoughts I've been having in the last few days.
One thing, because I did watch the last city commission meeting, and the public comment section was truthfully hard to get through just because it was so emotional. I mean, hearing from Daquan's mother was incredibly emotional. Hearing that question of when can mothers of Black men specifically feel safe, and you talk about the healing, but I wonder if you see healing possible with that broken trust right now.
I think that the trust being broken is the biggest symptom of the hurt, and I think that the healing includes that. I mean, I've been thinking about this too. I might get a little too deep for you guys out there.
Happy to go there.
This month, from a very where do I stand kind of because I've had some people asking make a stand. And I realized that if I were why is that it's not an issue-based thing for me, whether it's this issue or other issues. If I really were to think about the kind of leader that I am or trying to be or just naturally am aspiring to be, it is it's a values-based thing. And I think what I see most, if I could do one thing, people have asked me, what's your priority, right? And we've talked about housing, we've talked about the environment, and these are all good priorities from a practical standpoint. But if I could do one thing as a leader, I think that trust is the biggest issue. And so fostering trust, building trust, and I'm gonna be really, really direct. This is not just about institutional trust, government trust versus, trust in government, but trust between each other as neighbors. And I think when I think back on what I've been saying for the last year, I've been very, very consistent to say, we all are Grand Rapids. Have you talked to your neighbor? Do you help them when they lost their job? Do you bring, you go Feeding America, get extra food? Bring extra potatoes. None of us want all the potatoes, Feeding America. But thank you for the potatoes. And, there's places that are doing food network and food mini little groups, social, that decentralized networks of community. And I think about these things do you know who to call? And I heard people saying I wouldn't call the police first, right? But having people to call. And if my kids needed to be home alone, do I have someone I can say, watch out? If my dog hurt somebody, do I have somebody who's going to help? Do I know where to borrow a cup of sugar? I mean, I kind of guys, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, if we could all be a little more like that, maybe we'd all make the world a little bit better place. There you go, I'll end there.
On the institutional side of it, though, I know at the last Mayor's Monday Forum, it was on policing and justice, which just happened to be timely. But one of the things that was discussed was encouraging civilians to be involved with the process of finding a new police chief, a long-term police chief. Do you know much about that upcoming process and how folks can get involved?
So I would say pay attention. I have been told by the city manager it is his intention. I think it's his desire. In the past, when we hired our previous chief, we had community stakeholders, we had other people providing input. So I think even though it's his job and his responsibility, he takes it very seriously that this is also a community input time. And so I think there will be opportunities. He'll want to hear from the commission, obviously. He'll want to hear from appointed leaders, community leaders, neighborhood leaders. And the public in general. So I am not in charge of community engagement, but I'm sure we're going to have some. We have a great department, and we have let me talk about that. We have a new framework. For months and weeks and years, we've been saying, why don't we do better with our communications? And they just announced, as in the city staff just announced at a couple meetings ago, our new fully fledged, fully thought out community engagement framework, which really, I hope, will help everyone understand this is a time when you can give input. This is a time when we're just telling you something, so you start adjusting, and this is a time when you actually are co-creating with us. So I think if you pay attention to that, this will be probably more in the input section, like, give us some ideas, but obviously Mr. Washington will have the end decision.
Do you have something that you're specifically looking for in a new chief?
It's really too bad that Chief Winstrom left, because I think that even though he got a lot of heat, continues to get a lot of heat, I think that he really, truly, from his heart, did a lot and could have done a lot more in our community. I've had the opportunity to go to every last one of our oath of office swearing in for our new officers. Some of them are coming from other communities and are lateral. Some of them are new, coming out of the academy and young. And so I've gone to 4 or 5 of those now. And when I'm in those rooms, what I hear directly said to the new officers, we hired you for your heart and your character. Never forget that who you are inside the uniform. Never forget that you are there, and ultimately not just to provide safety and to respond to incidents, you are there to continue to provide care, compassion, and empathy. And I didn't hear it once. I've heard it consistently over and over and over again in those rooms. So I think that there is a culture shift inside. I think it's hard to see that on the outside. I think that there's generational shifts happening. But when they keep saying that over and over again, and most of the internal affairs reports that we're having, the incidents or whatever complaints, those are coming from inside the department, not from outside. And I'll just say this last thing. I heard a lot of pain at the commission meeting last week about like all these stories of like personal experiences in my neighborhood. And part of what I was thinking was, why didn't you make a complaint? We don't have data if we don't have community people saying this happened to me. And we can't push back and say, police think we're great. Okay, but how many data? No data points? It's as if it didn't happen, even though it's a real lived experience.
How can folks make those kind of reports? Because I know that some people might hear that and think like, I go to city commission meetings, I give public comment, right. I'm vocal on social media. Why does it fall on me to make these changes or to make these complaints?
So that's a really, really good point. So I'm gonna first say the data, right? That's if nothing else, help us make some data. So like everything, we have a process, and we have to have a process. And so you call OPA, you can call 311 and ask, and they will connect you with whomever, or you can go right to the police department. It's pretty straightforward and simple, and then they will guide you from there. And in some cases, there may also be online specific web pages, but I would say call 311, and they will either route you to OPA if you want to be the non-police citizen side, or they will route you to the internal affairs, police complaint line.
Is it recorded in any way, like when there is during public comment sections when 95% of the people are there for one topic? Is that also a way to kind of gather data of?
I think it's good for us as commissioners and in the public, and make that public record. And then clearly, as we've seen from some viral clips from those comments, other communities, other people snip, and then they go and they get potentially taken out of context, even if, whatever the message, good, bad, or indifferent. But it is not a formal complaint. It does not create a data set, and it does not be the foundation from which we can build where are the problems really happening. If I want a map of the heat, like if I want a heat map, AKA I want a heat map, where are the neighborhoods that have the most problems? No data, no idea.
Yeah. Well, it is now time for us to take another break. When we return, we'll be answering questions from viewers like you. To take part in the conversation, send in a question to cityconnection@grcmc.org, or submit a question through the Rapidian's Instagram story @The Rapidian.
Why do local businesses spend their marketing dollars with Community Media Center? Because it's more than just passive advertising. It is an investment in the community that is eager to invest in you. The Community Media Center makes Grand Rapids vital. We collaborate with local businesses and support events in West Michigan. Inclusive. We amplify local voices that tell the diverse and ever-changing stories of our community. Creative. We encourage artists to showcase and expand their talents and to shape the look and sound of Grand Rapids. Marketing with the CMC will let our community know who you are and increase brand recognition for your business. At the end of the day, we are a resource that will keep you connected to the community. Share your message with diverse audiences by underwriting with WYCE, GRTV, Wealthy Theater, and the Rapidian. Join us in building a stronger community through media. Contact us at marketing@grcmc.org.
Welcome back to City Connection. It's March 2, 2026, and we're joined here by Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak. During this part of the show, we'll be taking questions from viewers, starting with a question that came through from email. What is the City Commission's goals this year about housing affordability in Grand Rapids, specifically toward people who rent in the city? Rent rates here are crazy. A lot of the options in the city feel like they are controlled by a monopoly of a few realty businesses. What about protecting tenants from overreaching lease agreements, etc.?
Great question. So interestingly, last week's commission meeting was a meaty meeting, not just in the public side, but even before that, all our morning meetings leading up were lots going on. And one of those things is a review, mid-year review of where we're at in our goals and where we have been in the past, including housing. And so I really encourage everyone to go fast forward and scroll through those morning meetings and look for the committee of the whole, which is usually the last part of that section. And we had a big briefing and presentation with time for questions from commissioners and whatnot too, and the whole section there about housing. So there's like a chart. We are on track and over from last year in terms of the number of units of housing. A lot of them are still market rate, but we're doing, and I'm not going to get the percentage right, so I'm not going to try to remember, but it was quite a respectable percentage that were considered 80% or lower, or AKA affordable. And when I say 80%, I mean of AMI, which stands for the area median income. So this is something that I like to touch on a lot because people don't understand what we're saying when we say affordable. And I don't even like the word affordable. I like attainable, which is a whole different maybe mindset or model. But the governmental standard set by HUD, the housing department at the federal level, is AMI, area median income, which is the entire area, is based on the census. So it's Grand Rapids plus Kent County. And so the research that I've done suggests that the AMI just for the city, if you just look at the city, our area median income inside the city boundaries is about 10 to 15 and as much as $20,000 less than the countywide area median income. But all of those numbers, when we say it's 80% of the area median income, is the countywide. Yeah. So that's partly why it feels so much more unattainable for you, because you're looking at, we're building housing that's quote unquote affordable at 80%, but it's 80% of the county, which is already $10,000 or $15,000 more than your income here in the city, potentially. So, and again, this is my opportunity to remind folks that it is private development that builds housing. So it's not the city itself in very, very few cases. We do own through the Housing Commission a couple of senior apartments kind of situation, but we are not landlords, right? Or we're not tenants. Well, that came out wrong, but so we work with private developers in terms of permitting, land use, and then like incentives, whether it's tax incentives or other things in partnership with like whatever they can get for their state, federal, and things like that. And we have the Emerging Developers Program, which the majority of those are folks very interested in starting for the reason of being able to provide better housing for affordable folks, right?
Yeah. If a tenant in Grand Rapids or a renter feels like their leasing agreement isn't fair, is there a route for them, like through the city?
Yeah, that was a complicated question they had given us. I would actually encourage them to reach out to what am I trying to think of? The legal folks that do stuff through the courts. Why can't I think of their name now?
I don't know, and I don't know I can help.
Yeah, there's like free or low cost services there. They have an office right there in the courthouse and things too. But the state of Michigan has rules about what has to be in leases, what can't be in leases, and oversees that sort of stuff. And most judges, if you're going through like a process, I happen to be speaking from personal experience, that, they say, well, these fees, let's say you didn't pay your rent and you've got all these extra fees and now you're going through eviction, and the judge will look at those and say, those fees are too much, and they'll cut them in half or whatever. So I think that it's important that we are smart as consumers and people who are in renting and read what's being offered and negotiate right then with your landlord as much as possible, especially if they're just a person. I know that the commenter said something about large businesses and realty. And that is sort of true on some level, but it's also true that sometimes we have a lot of management companies, half a dozen big ones. So you might see their names a lot and think it's all one company, but they're actually middlemen on behalf of private owners so they're just doing the management so that the other people can just own and walk away. And they take a significant portion of the rents and profits in order to do that. So work with your person, and if you have any questions, I guess, continue to reach out to, I would be happy to, when I remember what the name of the group is, put it out there.
Okay. We have another question that came to us by email. The snow just melted and revealed a whole bunch of dog poop on my sidewalk that hasn't been picked up all winter. Am I responsible for cleaning this up from the city's perspective? I am not a pet owner, partially because I don't want to pick up their poop, and I am frustrated with my neighbors who have no idea who's responsible. I put up signs in my front yard, but I'd rather not get a ticket from the city for not cleaning up my sidewalk.
Well, first of all, thank you for being a very conscientious and smart person, like taking care of your sidewalk. Most people aren't even paying attention to that, so thank you for being a great neighbor. Knock on wood, don't think you'll get a ticket. It's not something that, yes, there is a city code about picking up dog poop, FYI. Pet waste is a pollutant, and it does carry E. coli, can make us all sick. But you are correct that it should be the pet owner's job. And so we need to do a better job of PSA to our pet owning friends that you should carry around your little poop bag and pick it up, okay? Garbage bags, grocery bags, you don't have to spend any money, but it's really necessary. I too had a problem with stuff like that in my curb, and I did end up getting signs from Amazon and putting them on my curb tree, and it seemed to help. So I'm sorry the yard signs aren't working for you, but unfortunately it is in front of your house and nobody else is going to come and do it unless you can find the pet owner and collectively all coerce them into doing it. But this is also where I go back to the idea of building community, and what now more than ever, how we need each other. Maybe we have an opportunity here. We're going to have coming up in April there's a big citywide, we're now expanding it to 2 days potentially, citywide neighborhood cleanup. So maybe this is an opportunity to get some of your block members together and say, hey, help me with this mess that has been left of no responsibility of my own, and I'll help you with something over there. And then start talking about how maybe we can show up for these wider citywide cleanups that are going to be coming up.
Another question, this one comes from a Redditor. Does Commissioner Belchak support creating new GRPD policies restricting police dogs solely to drug or bomb sniffing?
Wow, that is a direct question. Wow. I appreciate the question. And, quite frankly, I have not spent a ton of time. I'm thinking at that bigger level, like I was just discussing. So I have not decided if I'm going to be saying we should restrict police dogs solely to one thing or another. I do understand how horrible and off-putting it was, and I do very much think that dogs of any sort should not be hurting people that, and having injuries. I do think like that is a risk we all have, and I have personal opinions about dogs I've had in my neighborhood that I feel strongly about. So I just feel very much like we need to investigate this and think more about what the policies exist, what works, what doesn't work, where does it make most sense. That's a very tough one. I don't mean to defer, except to say that I just don't have enough information to make a really strong opinion.
And as far as, like we've talked about policing policies, that is Mark Washington.
We can direct if there's enough movement or consensus on the commission to, look into that more. I think that is going to be a longer discussion that we have to have. And I want to acknowledge where we're at in the whole process of seeing what happened. We're in the, the anger and the grief and the fear kind of part of it. And some of that is carried forward from generations. So now's not the time to be making emotional decisions. The time to make good decisions is when you can really process all that.
Another question from Reddit. Do you support surveilling the community with flock safety cameras?
Well, I understand a lot of the conversation, and I personally, I don't like Ring cameras, okay? I'm going to say that, all y'all who have those. We are all watching each other all the time, and I think that my mindset is just like there is no expectation of privacy in most cases. Now, I am going to be clear. I do not own a Ring camera. I have been encouraged to think about that because we're living in an environment with more potential danger, and I have a family and myself to think about. But I also understand that Flock is not a well-respected company and that there is real data concerns. That is something that I personally, firsthand, researched very heavily last, I want to say June, because there was a lot of controversy about that. And like all the subscriptions that seems to be going around, you can subscribe to things and suddenly all your notifications and data are being shared. Flock had a setting in the back end that would automatically do that. And so I wanted to make sure that wasn't happening. And I have been triple, double personally and all the things reassured, and that they have been, the police department that is, has been in touch with like Kalamazoo's police chief where they had an issue and other places. They're aware of it, they had fixed it, the IT people said they fixed it. So I know I'm not answering your question about supporting or not supporting, but I am telling you that at this time I have a high degree of confidence firsthand that our flock cameras are not sharing data beyond our own police. We can have a larger conversation about what it means to be, everyone in surveillance at all times. But that's where I'll end on that, I guess, for now.
Can I ask a follow-up question
Sure.
around that? The last time we really had a large conversation in our community about surveillance was when GRPD announced that they'd have drones.
Yes.
And it was actually an investigation here at the Rapidian that was done to see where drones were being flown in Grand Rapids, and we found that drones were more often flown in low income and neighborhoods that had a lot of Hispanic and Black folks living in them, which was, a disappointing thing to learn. Is there any way for the community to track like where these flock cameras are, or if we know if there are more in one neighborhood than the next?
I don't know that off the top with the flock, but I do think, like, again, when we're talking about flock or the drones, these are really important discussions. And when I said that last week's meeting was really meaty, the part of that is we had our annual presentation at the Public Safety Committee, which happens at 12:30. It's its own video on YouTube for the city city site, so go there and you can watch. They presented the entire, here's where our drones are going, here's where they're not. Now, my understanding is the flock cameras have been, for whatever reason, they were before that surveillance reporting was mandated, so they're like grandfathered in. But it was interesting to me, one of my takeaways from that meeting, because I sat there for that, was about that it's 40% of the drones for police usage, because also keep in mind fire uses it, but for police was actually on the west side. It wasn't in like some of these other neighborhoods you might imagine, you know. And so, but 60% of fire drones, so again, feeling like more drones are in your neighborhood, from the 49507 area, the same area we were talking about with some of these problematic incidents and sadnesses. And so that was interesting to me, like there's 60% more happening there because there's like poorer housing stock and there's more fires. But we don't know as people, you just hear police or you hear sirens or you hear, you know, drones and you're like, oh, they're all following me, but it might be fire. So that was kind of a surprise to me, like that the disparity just like that. So go back, watch that. You can ask for the report. It's available every year and we'll keep researching. That's what I obviously like to do, so.
Thanks for answering my follow-ups too. It's time for us to take another break. When we return, we'll be taking more questions from the public.
It's morning in Grand Rapids. Do you know what's going on in your city? Stay informed about what's happening in your community with The Rapidian, your source for hyperlocal news and information. The Rapidian is a community-focused news source powered by local residents like you. Our volunteer writers and reporters create content that hits close to home about topics like local government, business, schools, events, and people. The Rapidian goes beyond the headlines to provide in-depth coverage of issues that affect Grand Rapids directly, so you can stay in the know. We aim to uplift the community by sharing positive, inspiring stories of growth, progress, and neighborhood pride. The Rapidian is your neighborhood newspaper for the digital age. Follow us on our website and social media to stay connected to your community. This is The Rapidian.
Welcome back to City Connection. We're joined by Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak, taking questions from the public once again. Another question from Reddit asking, involving the noise amplifier ordinance, with the recent banning of voice amplifiers within 100 feet of medical facilities, what is to prevent this ordinance to be used as justification to quell protests all around downtown? I think this one might have a few questions, so let's pause after each one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Keep going?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's get the whole gist.
Could any medically adjacent company theoretically rent space near a Planned Parenthood area? Would this hinder unionizing efforts by medical professionals to strike outside places of work? Could return to the river be canceled because of its proximity to the Corwell offices on Monroe?
Okay, so I think that last bit is its own topic, but
Okay.
the other ones seem to fit together. And honestly, I'm going to be frank right now. I'm not sure I know what return to the river is. Is that part of like going into, getting involved in river activities?
Yeah, and I
Outdoor.
believe it's a festival.
It's a
of some
festival,
sort.
even better. We have so many festivals.
I don't know, don't quote me for sure.
So let's just address that one since it seems to be the simplest. I would ask the planning department, and if you're planning a special event, to coordinate with the special events department, because you have to get your permit and your site plan and everything like that. So if you're a planner or you know planners or you're curious about a festival that would have impacts potentially, or you're worried about, I would reach out to the organizers of that and have them work with those folks to get your answers, because Corwell would have to like have a plan and everybody would, so. But I will say, since we're on that topic, FYI folks, you mentioned the river restoration and the lower reach. That was also presented on the other day, and I forget which committee it was in, but the presentation actually suggests that we're going to be closing Anabawan Park and that whole area, so that there can be construction staging and all the things for 2 years.
Yeah, starting the spring.
Yeah, so my question is like, where's the fireworks going to be and everything else? Like, people gather there, and this is right at the same time when we're launching the soccer stadium potentially, and as things go on in the amphitheater, and so like that's a busy area of our downtown. I do know that the public museum should be having their Riverwalk area done soon, so maybe that is an alternative. But yeah, there's like construction and changes in our community does impact our events.
Yeah, and Art Prize. It's a big area for Art Prize.
Now on the rest of the stuff, you'll have to remind me a little bit about what the question was, but
There were a few. So
the noise ordinance, that's what I call it for lack of a better term right now. I appreciate the questions. These are all questions we brought up, we thought through. There were some commissioners that were concerned about these kinds of questions, and it certainly is not, from my perspective, anything that that is not the intent of the ordinance. The intent of the ordinance is to give some clarity for law enforcement to say this is when it's okay and this is when it's not okay. Not about the free speech and doing that protest activity, but also how do you balance that with the rights and respect for patients and for people seeking care and privacy. So I think that for me, we have a very defined map of where that was presented during the conversations, not necessarily when we were voting, but throughout, that the city attorney provided us. Of like, these are the known health care places and they have dots. And those are the places we were looking at and considering when we made this ordinance, not a carte blanche anywhere, everywhere. Could that map change in the future if there were new facilities opened? Probably. But again, I don't think we as a city commission want anyone to not be able to voice their First Amendment rights, strike, do all those sorts of things. So that's how I would answer that.
And it is just sound amplifiers.
Right, you can still protest. Yeah, it's just like not to use such loud sound and speakers, and because some of these people are carrying around little karaoke
megaphones,
machines. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's not your normal volume. And if it's happening every day in a particular area or multiple times, it's more than just like a one-time, picket a protest. We had some this weekend, right, at Rosa Parks and other places. Like, it's there, it's a few hours, you leave. All those things. But if it's going on for lots of time, or it's impacting the businesses and the neighbors, we have to consider other people's rights and their need as well. This is the hardest part of being at this level. It's like balancing. It's like, how do we get enough of everybody's needs met?
And if I am remembering this right, because this was part of our conversation last month on the show too, your vote was kind of interesting during all of this, because you voted to pause once these things were being brought up about kind of these questions. Will it affect protests happening downtown, X, Y, and Z? And then that vote didn't pass to pause the conversation. But then you also voted in favor of the ordinance. Can you talk a little bit about
that you brought that up? So like, I've tried to be clear that it is about balancing. Like, I'm very strong about the First Amendment. I'm a former journalist. I understand the right to free speech. I understand some First Amendment law a little bit, and it's like, that's very vital and important now more than ever in the current environment that we're in and going into an election year. So I want to put that front and center. So having these questions, having put a pause, the motion on the table at the time had been to pause through May to consider these extra questions and then take another vote at that time. And that vote did not pass that motion did not pass to table it with the idea of researching till May. So, because again, I'm like, we've been dealing with this, trying to figure this out. The city has for 5-8 years. What's another few months going to matter? But overall, do I want something to be done to give clarity to our community, to give clarity to our law enforcement, to give clarity to those who want to protest? Yeah, I want something that defines, and that is the job of the commission. So in the end, if it wasn't going to be held over, it is still my decision to, vote to get something on the books, because we can vote and have it pass and do something, try it, see how it works, and then maybe change it later. Or we can all go, oh, I guess, I don't know, I'm too afraid to make a decision, and then nothing happens. And then we don't get change.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next question, because we are getting to the end of the
Sorry,
show.
I
No,
talked
that's
too
not
much.
your fault. It's not your fault. I'm just keeping us on
You guys are
track.
asking hard
Another
questions today.
question from Reddit. During the last sit-down with GR City Access, you've mentioned, I believe they mean City Connection, you've mentioned several times about the data not being there regarding public safety, specifically ICE, and about time and place reports. What kind of community engagement are you referring to here? Are these reports to be emailed to commissioners directly? Should citizens rely on independent groups for reporting, or does the city make room for these reports? And what assurance do people have that it will take possible misconduct seriously?
That's a lot of stuff in that question, and I think there's some overlap. So it's very hard because we get two ideas conflated with each other. So I want to be really clear that ICE is not GRPD, right? So I have data about GRPD. I don't have data about ICE. I don't have access to federal databases. I have access to municipal, sort of, if I ask the right questions and get staff to reply. That said, when I was talking earlier about making police complaints, or even if you feel disrespected by getting a ticket, and how that interaction went, like, we need to be able to have data to be able to track that. And I would say that is good for the officers, it's good for the leadership in the department, and it's good for the rest of us. When it comes to other things in the community, I'm just saying, let's be careful not jumping to conclusions, because there's a lot of confusion at the federal level about which agency is doing what and for whom. And we don't have that data. And so you can bring me stories, but until I know specifically what to look for and how we helped or didn't help, I need actual things that they can look up in our records at the city level.
Can we do a speed round for the last
I'll try.
question to squeeze it in right before the end of the show? I want to make sure everyone's question is asked. This one came in through email. What is your take on the comments made by former police chief Eric Wenstrom about the lack of trust in police in our community?
This is great. I think this goes right back to where we began our conversation, and some of those ideas that I was sharing about from a very much higher level. I really do think we have a trust problem. I think that is a trust between people in our community, trust between institutions and organizations, trust between, government and people and police and people. And I think that he's not wrong in that aspect. I think that's what he was trying to convey. And if I could solve one thing through my leadership from a values perspective, it would be to help rebuild and start healing enough that we can start to build trust, because we can't work together and co-create and collaborate a future if we can't trust each other. So I know it's hard to hear, but I think that he was trying to get to something there that I think he's leaving with. This is me judging a little, but I think he's leaving with a little bit of sadness that he wishes he could have done more and stayed longer, and he felt like he was at a dead end. But again, reading between the lines there, please take that with a grain of salt, everyone who wants to snip this.
Well, that is all the time that we have today. Thank you to our guest for coming in and sharing your insight. And thank you to all of you at home for tuning in and sending in your questions. Don't forget, you can always watch rebroadcasts throughout March on Cable GRTV's Channel 25 or the GRTV YouTube page. See you next month, Grand Rapids.
The Grand Rapids Community Media Center is committed to creating a diverse and inclusive environment for all community members. It is a place where community voices are heard, valued, and lifted through media.
We seek to provide area residents with a platform to participate in free speech, be engaged with the community, and share their diverse voices. As a multimedia platform organization, we provide and support a variety of community resources, including our radio station, WYCE 88.1 FM, our TV station, GRTV, our hyper-local news program, The Rapidian, web services, and our historic theater, Wealthy Theater.
WYCE is West Michigan's only community radio station that is listener-supported and volunteer-powered. WYCE uses local voices to help listeners discover and celebrate different services, cultures, and events. What I really like about programming music in WYCE is I get to not only interact with listeners and local musicians, but I get to put together a musical collage every week and give it away to the universe. As a volunteer programmer, you get the training on how to use equipment, how to access music from the library, and how to put together a great show that showcases local and national artists and still has your creativity included.
The Web Services Department helps West Michigan nonprofits connect, learn, create, and share through locally built and accessible websites. We help nonprofits strengthen their online presence by developing one-of-a-kind websites tailored to their specific needs. The Web Services team can take care of all the technical needs of getting a new site up and running, including website hosting, domain name registration, theme development, and page layout. Websites are built with accessibility and responsiveness in mind, making sure our projects are available on any screen and accessible to people of all abilities. We are passionate about helping organizations in the nonprofit sector effectively communicate their stories online, promoting equity and media access with our affordable services.
Wealthy Theater is a historic theater on the southeast side of Grand Rapids. It was built in 1911, and today it stands as a performing arts center, historic cinema, and community venue. We provide a space for community connection, where community members can get together, enjoy different shows and different events, from concerts to comedy, musicals, theater, film screenings, you name it. Anybody from the community can sign up to be a member and rent one of our spaces to host their event. We have a staff here at the theater that helps make all the events here happen, as well as a great community of volunteers. The goal is to bring the community together, bring audiences together, artists together, create experiences where those two can connect. Whether you're an audience member who wants to come see a show, or you're somebody who wants to put on a show, Wealthy Theater is a space for you.
The Rapidian is a hyper-local news source powered by, for, and of the people of Grand Rapids, Michigan. We launched in 2009 using funds from local organizations and generous donors, and this community-driven platform empowers residents to share their stories, post articles, and keep track of local events and issues. By emphasizing citizen journalism, the Rapidian provides a unique grassroots perspective and a vital news service for the residents of Grand Rapids. In 2023, we are relaunching the Rapidian with the Grand Rapids Documenters program, where we train and pay local citizens to cover public meetings, empowering residents with the tools and resources to strengthen the news media landscape in Grand Rapids and become more civically engaged.
GRTV airs public access television programming made by and for the Grand Rapids community, amplifying their voices to support a diverse and vibrant democracy. We provide the tools, training, and broadcast platform for free speech. Community members can take classes on video and production features, borrow professional equipment, editing software, and use of our studio facilities to create their own content. We help community members connect, learn, create, and share.